In tears, she signed the divorce papers, tore up the pregnancy test, and left. 6 years later. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Emma Brooks sat in the dimly lit restaurant, her hands trembling as she clutched the divorce papers. She'd been staring at them for what felt like an eternity, her heart heavy with a decision she never thought she would have to make. The air in the restaurant was thick with the soft hum of conversations and the clinking of silverware. But to Emma, it all felt like background noise. She had never felt so alone. Her dress, a second-hand find she bought just last week, clung awkwardly to her frame. The shoes she wore, scuffed and worn, made her feel out of place in this upscale, bustling restaurant. But she had promised her best friend Jenny that she would go through with the blind date no matter what. As she took a deep breath and stepped into the restaurant, her heart began to pound. She scanned the tables, her eyes flicking nervously from one to the next. Table 7. Table 7, she muttered under her breath. She wasn't sure why she felt so anxious. Blind dates had never been her thing, but Jenny had insisted, and Emma was determined to go through with it. There, at the back of the room, she spotted him, a sharply dressed man sitting alone, engrossed in his phone. He was exactly as Jenny had described him, or at least, she thought he was. Her heart raced as she walked toward him. The closer she got, the more her nerves kicked in. With a shaky smile, she approached the table. "Hi, you must be Kevin," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The man looked up, startled, blinking a couple of times in confusion. He froze for a moment, not sure how to respond. Hi. Emma," he said slowly, clearly taken off guard. Emma, misunderstanding his hesitation as shyness, sat down across from him. "I know this is awkward," she laughed nervously, trying to break the ice. "Blind dates are weird, right? Jenny said you might be a little shy, so don't worry, I can talk enough for both of us." The man, who introduced himself as Liam Parker, hesitated again. He had no idea how to react. But something about Emma's sincerity, her earnest smile, made him pause. He could tell she wasn't like the polished socialites he usually interacted with. She seemed real, genuine, so different from the people he was used to. His lips curled into a faint smile. "Right. Blind dates are something else." Emma laughed softly and took a sip of her water. "Tell me about it. Jenny has been trying to set me up for months, but I've been too busy with work." "What do you do?" Liam asked, genuinely curious now. Emma fiddled nervously with the edge of her napkin, her eyes lowering to avoid his gaze. "I'm a waitress," she admitted. "Not exactly glamorous, but it pays the bills." "Well, most of them anyway." "What about you?" Liam hesitated, then gave a vague answer. "I work in tech." Emma, trying to make light of the conversation, smiled. "Tech, huh? Like coding and apps and stuff? I'm terrible with computers," she said, shaking her head. Liam chuckled softly. "Something like that," he said, his smile widening. Despite the awkward beginning, the conversation flowed more easily than either of them had expected. Emma talked about her shifts at the diner, her struggles with rent, and her dream of one day opening her own art studio. Liam found himself laughing more than he had in months. Her enthusiasm was contagious. "You're not what I expected," Emma said after a moment, her voice thoughtful. Liam raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Well, Jenny said you were kind of reserved," she admitted, flushing slightly. "But you're actually easy to talk to." Liam laughed, a genuine, warm sound. "You're easy to talk to, too," he said, and Emma beamed at the compliment. She was about to ask him more about his work when her phone buzzed. She glanced down and saw a message from Jenny. "Hey Emma, where are you? I'm at table 7. Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin." Emma's heart sank as she reread the message. Her face turned bright red with embarrassment as she looked up at Liam. "You're not Kevin, are you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam's smile faltered, guilt flickering in his eyes. "No, I'm not." Emma's stomach twisted in mortification. "Oh my God," she muttered, standing up quickly. "I'm so sorry. I sat at the wrong table. This is so embarrassing." Before Liam could say anything, she grabbed her coat and bolted for the door, her face burning with shame. Liam stood up, watching her go. He felt a strange mix of regret and curiosity, wondering why he didn't correct her sooner. As he stood there, his thoughts kept returning to Emma, to the warmth and honesty in her eyes. Why did the thought of never seeing her again bother him so much? It had been a week since the awkward blind date, and Emma still couldn't get the image of Liam out of her mind. She had embarrassed herself so completely, running out of the restaurant without even giving him a chance to explain. She kept replaying the scene in her head, the confusion in his eyes, his hesitant smile, and the way he just watched her leave without chasing after her. Part of her had hoped he would call, that he would try to apologize for not correcting her sooner, but he didn't. Life moved on, and so did she. After all, she had enough problems to deal with. Her shift at the diner was as exhausting as ever. She had just about finished serving a table when Jenny called. "Emma, I think you need to see this," Jenny said, her voice sounding unusually excited. "What is it?" Emma asked, wiping a spot of ketchup off her apron. "Remember that guy from the blind date?" Jenny asked. Emma froze. "Liam?" "Yes. He's hosting the gala next month. I just saw it on his company's website. He's apparently a big deal in tech." Emma felt a knot form in her stomach. She hadn't thought about him since the restaurant. She'd figured he was just another rich guy playing at life, looking for a distraction. "Why would he want to host a gala?" Emma asked, still trying to process the thought. "Maybe you should go," Jenny said, clearly trying to nudge her into something. "You know, show him you're not just a waitress." Emma felt a spark of defiance. She wasn't going to show him anything. She had already humiliated herself enough. But as she hung up the phone, something nagged at her. A part of her wondered what it would be like to see him again, to apologize for running out on him. It wasn't that she expected anything from him. She just wanted to put things right. And maybe, just maybe, there was something in his eyes that she hadn't completely misread. The gala came sooner than she expected. It was held in one of the most lavish venues in the city. The ballroom was decorated in golds and silvers, with crystal chandeliers that sparkled like diamonds in the dim light. Emma stood by the entrance, feeling like a fish out of water. She had borrowed a dress from Jenny, one that was a little too tight and too fancy for her taste, but it was all she could afford. She couldn't help but feel like everyone in the room could tell she didn't belong. As she stood there, she noticed a man walk by a familiar face, Liam. He looked even more handsome than she remembered. His sharp features softened by a casual smile as he spoke with guests. He hadn't noticed her yet. Emma quickly ducked her head, trying to stay out of his line of sight. But as she turned to leave, she accidentally bumped into someone right into Liam. She looked up, heart pounding in her chest. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice full of panic. Liam turned to her, and for a moment, there was a flicker of recognition in his eyes. "Emma?" he asked, his tone soft with surprise. She felt her face heat up. "Yeah, it's me. I didn't expect to run into you here." She forced a smile, trying to act like it was no big deal. "I didn't think you'd come," Liam said, his voice calm but full of curiosity. "I didn't either," Emma replied, shrugging. "I thought it would be awkward." "It's not," Liam said, offering her a small smile. "It's good to see you." Emma stood there, stunned. She wasn't sure what to say next. It had been 6 years since they'd last spoken, and here they were, standing face to face again. For a moment, the tension between them seemed to dissipate. "I'm sorry for running out on you that night," Emma said quietly, her voice soft. "I didn't mean to make it weird, I panicked." Liam's eyes softened and he reached out, almost as if to touch her arm. "It's okay, really," he said. "I understand." The warmth in his voice was a stark contrast to the coldness she had expected. They stood there for a moment, unsure of what to say next. "Would you like to join me for a drink?" Liam asked. "I'd love to catch up." Emma hesitated. A part of her still wasn't sure what his intentions were. But another part of her, one that hadn't felt alive in a long time, wanted to say yes. She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'd like that." As they walked to the bar, Emma felt a flutter in her chest. Maybe this wasn't just an awkward coincidence. Maybe it was the start of something else entirely. As Emma and Liam made their way to the bar, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was surreal. 6 years had passed since their brief, awkward meeting, and here they were, standing together in the heart of a luxurious ballroom, both older, but perhaps not much wiser. Emma had never imagined running into Liam again, let alone in such a setting. As they reached the bar, Liam ordered 2 glasses of champagne, his presence still as commanding as it had been that night. Emma, on the other hand, felt the same nervous energy creeping up on her, a tension she thought she'd left behind. She glanced around the room, trying to steady her breath, her nerves flaring with each passing second. The elegant crowd around them was buzzing, their voices blending with the soft music in the background. Emma couldn't help but feel out of place, still wearing the borrowed dress that didn't quite fit her, the shoes too tight on her feet. "You look great," Liam said, breaking her train of thought. Emma turned to him, blinking in surprise. "What?" I said. "You look great," he repeated, a small smile tugging at his lips. Emma laughed softly, feeling a mix of disbelief and warmth. "You must be kidding." "I'm serious," Liam said, his gaze holding hers. "I didn't expect to see you again. But I'm glad you came." His sincerity caught her off guard. She had been so sure that their past encounter had been forgotten by him, just another fleeting moment in his life. But standing there now, with him watching her as though he actually cared, made her rethink everything. Emma's fingers tightened around her glass. "It's been a while," she said, trying to steer the conversation toward neutral ground. "Yeah," Liam said, nodding. "A long while." The air between them shifted, becoming less charged with awkwardness and more filled with something unspoken. There was a certain familiarity now, a sense that they were no longer strangers, even if the past had been distant and muddled. "So, how have you been?" Liam asked, his voice casual, but Emma could see the hint of genuine interest in his eyes. She hesitated, unsure of how to answer. She wasn't used to sharing much about herself. "I've been." "Okay," Emma said, taking a sip of her drink to buy herself a moment. "The diner's been keeping me busy, still working there." Liam nodded, though Emma could tell he was searching for more. "And you?" she asked. Liam's smile faded slightly as he glanced around the room, his fingers tracing the rim of his glass. "I've been working, mostly," he said, his voice steady. "Tech stuff. You know, the usual." Emma nodded, but something in the way he spoke told her there was more to the story, something he wasn't quite ready to share. The conversation shifted, moving from small talk to something deeper. They talked about the last 6 years, about the paths their lives had taken, and how much had changed. For Emma, it was refreshing. She hadn't realized how much she had missed, having a real conversation with someone who wasn't just another customer at the diner. Liam seemed to genuinely care about her words, his attention never wavering. As the evening wore on, Emma began to feel a strange sense of comfort. The nerves she had felt earlier were slowly dissolving, replaced by a warmth that spread through her chest. She had spent so many years trying to keep her emotions at bay, trying to convince herself that she didn't need anyone. But standing here now, with Liam's easy smile and quiet understanding, she felt something shift inside her. "You know," Liam said after a long pause, his tone thoughtful, "I always thought you were just another person in my life, one of the many faces I'd forget the moment I left the room." Emma looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. "But you weren't," he continued, meeting her gaze. "You're different." His words hung in the air, and Emma felt a pang of emotion she wasn't ready to confront. She had told herself over the years that she didn't need anyone to validate her, that she could be strong on her own. But maybe, just maybe, there was still a part of her that wanted to be seen, truly seen, for the first time in a long while. The tension in the room grew as their conversation came to a natural pause. They were standing on the precipice of something unknown, something that had been buried deep in the past but had now resurfaced. Emma wasn't sure what to say next, but the silence between them didn't feel uncomfortable. It felt like the start of something new, something that could change everything. Just as Emma opened her mouth to speak, a voice interrupted them. "Liam, there you are." Emma turned to see a woman approaching them, her smile wide, her hand outstretched. Liam turned to face her, and Emma felt a brief pang of jealousy. She wasn't sure why. They hadn't even known each other long enough for it to matter. "Hey, Jessica," Liam said, his tone warm but polite. "This is Emma. We met a while ago." Emma forced a smile, extending her hand. "Nice to meet you," she said, trying to hide the discomfort she was feeling. Jessica's eyes flicked between her and Liam, and Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "Well, I won't interrupt," Jessica said with a playful smile. "But you two should catch up. I'm sure you have a lot to talk about." As she walked away, Emma couldn't help but feel a little out of place again. She wasn't sure where things were going with Liam, but for the first time in years, she felt like she was standing at the edge of something that could change her life forever. As the evening progressed, Emma found herself growing more and more aware of the contrast between her and the people around her. The guests at the gala were all impeccably dressed, their conversations flowing smoothly as they mingled over champagne. Emma, on the other hand, felt like an outsider, standing at the edge of the glittering world she didn't belong to. She kept her gaze fixed on Liam, who was now deep in conversation with a group of people, but she noticed how he kept glancing back at her every so often, as if unsure whether to approach. Her heart beat a little faster each time their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. Maybe this night wasn't just a chance meeting. Maybe it was the beginning of something. Just then, as she sipped her drink and gathered her thoughts, Liam finally made his way back over to her, a slight smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Sorry about that," he said, his voice warm and apologetic. "Got caught up in business talk. It's all part of the job, I suppose." Emma laughed softly, her nerves slowly dissipating as she relaxed into the moment. "No problem," she said. "I get it. I'm sure it's hard to escape work when you're surrounded by it." Liam nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "It's true," he said. "Sometimes I miss the simpler things. Like this, just talking to someone without the pressure of everything else." His honesty caught Emma off guard, and she found herself smiling back at him. It was strange, she thought, how easy it was to talk to him, even after all this time. As they continued to chat, Emma began to feel a spark of something she hadn't felt in years: genuine connection. They talked about everything and nothing, about their pasts, their dreams, and their frustrations with the world around them. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt like she could just be herself, without any walls or pretensions. Liam seemed to understand, and she found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. "You know," Emma said after a while, "I never thought I'd be here tonight. I'm not exactly part of this world." She gestured vaguely around them, at the opulence of the venue, the rich chatter filling the room. "I'm just a waitress. I've been working at the same diner for years, trying to make ends meet." She shrugged, but there was a note of bitterness in her voice that she hadn't meant to show. Liam listened intently, his gaze softening. "I know what you mean," he said, his voice quiet but sincere. "Sometimes, it's easy to feel like you don't belong, but it's not where you are that matters. It's who you are, and what you do with what you have." His words hit Emma harder than she expected. She had always been so focused on what she didn't have, on the things that seemed out of reach. But maybe, just maybe, she had been looking at it all wrong. Maybe she was more than just a waitress, more than just a person stuck in a cycle of struggle. Liam's words stayed with her, lingering in her mind long after they finished talking. She didn't realize how much time had passed until she saw the clock on the wall, and by then, the energy in the room had shifted. It was nearing the end of the evening, and people were starting to make their way out, heading to the after-party, or simply retreating to their private lives. But Emma wasn't ready to leave just yet. There was something about Liam, something in the way he made her feel seen, that kept her rooted to the spot. He had this calming presence about him, as if he understood exactly what she needed, even when she didn't have the words for it. Just as she was about to speak, she saw him glance at his phone. His expression changed slightly, and Emma could sense a shift in the air. "I'm sorry," Liam said after a moment, his tone apologetic. "I've got to take care of something. Business stuff, you know how it is." Emma nodded, trying to mask the disappointment she felt. She didn't want to seem too eager or too clingy. "I understand," she said, giving him a small smile. "I'll let you go. It was nice catching up." But Liam didn't move. Instead, he looked at her with a seriousness that caught her off guard. "Emma," he said, his voice low but steady, "I know we didn't exactly leave things on the best note 6 years ago, but I want you to know that I don't regret meeting you. I'd like to see you again." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't sure if it was the champagne or the way his words seemed to hang in the air, but she could feel a connection with him that she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about the possibility of something new. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the way he was looking at her, the way he was speaking to her, made her believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for them. "I'd like that too," Emma said softly, her voice almost a whisper. Liam smiled, and for the first time that night, she saw a spark of hope in his eyes. "Good," he said, his smile widening. "I'll call you. Let's take it slow, okay?" Emma nodded, her heart feeling lighter than it had in years. Maybe this wasn't just a one-time meeting. Maybe, just maybe, it was the start of something real. The next few days passed in a blur for Emma. After the gala, she couldn't stop thinking about the conversation with Liam. It wasn't just the way he looked at her or how easy it was to talk to him. It was the sincerity in his words that left a mark on her heart. When he said he wanted to see her again, something inside her shifted. She had spent so long keeping everyone at arm's length, building walls around herself, but Liam was different. He made her feel like she was more than just the girl working at the diner, more than just a waitress scraping by. She thought about their conversation constantly. What if this could be the chance she'd been waiting for? A fresh start, a new chapter, something real. A part of her wanted to rush into it, to leap into this unknown future with him, but another part of her held back, unsure if she was ready to let go of the past. Days turned into weeks, and Emma found herself anxiously waiting for Liam's call. She had told herself that she wouldn't wait around, that she had more important things to focus on. But every time her phone buzzed, her heart skipped a beat, hoping it was him. Then, one evening, as she was closing up the diner, her phone finally rang. She didn't recognize the number, but she knew. It had to be him. "Hello?" she answered, her voice slightly shaking. "Hey, Emma. It's Liam," came his familiar voice, calm and steady. "I know this is sudden, but I was wondering if you'd like to grab dinner sometime this week. Just the two of us." Emma's heart fluttered in her chest, but she kept her cool, trying not to sound too eager. "I'd like that," she replied, her voice soft but genuine. "When? How about Thursday? I know a great little place I think you'll love." "Thursday works," Emma said, a smile creeping across her face. "It's a date." Liam chuckled softly on the other end of the line. "It's a date then. I'll pick you up at 7. The conversation ended with both of them feeling lighter, as though the weight of the past few years had finally been lifted. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt a spark of excitement about something that didn't involve work, bills, or the never-ending cycle of survival. It felt like she was finally moving forward, not just surviving but living. Thursday came faster than expected, and Emma found herself standing in front of the mirror, carefully choosing what to wear. She wanted to look good, but she also didn't want to overdo it. After all, this wasn't some grand affair. It was just dinner. Yet, as she stood there, she realized that for the first time in a while, she cared about how she looked. It wasn't about impressing Liam or anyone else. It was about feeling good in her own skin, something she hadn't felt in a long time. She chose a simple black dress that hugged her curves just right, paired with a pair of heels she borrowed from Jenny. When Liam arrived at her apartment, Emma couldn't help but feel a little nervous. He looked even better than she remembered, his suit sharp and perfectly tailored, his smile warm and inviting. "You look beautiful," Liam said as he greeted her, his gaze lingering just a little longer than necessary. Emma felt her cheeks flush. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice a little more than a whisper. "You look great too." They exchanged a few more pleasantries before heading out the door. The drive to the restaurant was filled with easy conversation, the kind that flowed without effort. It was as if the years of awkwardness and distance between them had never existed. The restaurant was small but cozy, the kind of place where the lights were dim and the air smelled of fresh pasta and garlic. They sat at a quiet table by the window, the soft hum of other diners filling the background. Liam ordered a bottle of wine, and they spent the next hour talking about everything that had happened in the 6 years since they'd last seen each other, their hopes for the future, the things that scared them, the things they wanted to accomplish. For Emma, it felt like a breath of fresh air. She hadn't realized how much she had missed just talking to someone, someone who actually listened, someone who made her feel like she mattered. By the time the dessert menu arrived, Emma found herself smiling more than she had in ages. "I'm glad we did this," she said, looking at Liam across the table. He met her gaze, his expression softening. "Me too," he said. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said that night at the gala. You know, about how sometimes it feels like we don't belong in this world." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. "Yeah," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've felt that way for a long time." "You don't have to feel that way," Liam said, his voice full of sincerity. "You belong in this world, and you belong with me." Emma's breath caught in her chest. She wasn't sure what to say next, but in that moment, she realized that maybe she did belong. Maybe she did deserve something more. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something beautiful. As the evening wore on, Emma found herself drawn deeper into Liam's world, but at the same time, she couldn't shake the unease building in the back of her mind. She had told herself she wasn't going to fall for him again, that she wouldn't make the same mistake she had 6 years ago. But everything about this night, about Liam, felt different. He had changed, she could see it in the way he spoke, in the way he looked at her. There was no pretension, no walls, just a genuine connection she hadn't felt in a long time. They shared stories about their lives, their challenges, their dreams, and for the first time in years, Emma felt like she was talking to someone who really understood her. She had spent so long believing that no one could truly see her, that no one could care enough to look beyond the surface. But Liam, he was different. He saw her. And that terrified her. As the night came to an end, they stepped outside the restaurant, the cool night air greeting them as they walked toward the parking lot. Liam reached for her hand, a small gesture that sent a shock of electricity through Emma's body. She hesitated for just a moment, but then, almost instinctively, she let him take her hand. The warmth of his touch grounded her, and she realized that she didn't want to let go, not yet. "I had a great time tonight," Liam said, his voice low and sincere as they reached his car. Emma smiled, her heart fluttering. "Me too," she replied, her voice soft. "Thank you for dinner. It was really nice." "I'm glad you liked it," Liam said, his thumb brushing gently over her hand. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said at the gala, about not feeling like you belong. I think you belong exactly where you are." Emma's breath caught in her throat. His words were like a balm to her soul, soothing the doubts and fears she had carried with her for so long. She had always felt like she didn't quite fit in, like she was constantly on the outside looking in. But maybe, just maybe, she was wrong. Maybe she didn't have to be perfect to be worthy of love, of happiness. Maybe she was enough, as she was. "I don't know," she whispered, her eyes lowering to their intertwined fingers. "It's just hard to believe sometimes." Liam gently lifted her chin, bringing her eyes back to his. "You're more than enough," he said, his voice filled with certainty. "You always have been." Emma swallowed hard, the words hitting her in a way she hadn't expected. She had never thought of herself as enough, not when she was a child, not when she was growing up, and certainly not now. But hearing Liam say those words, she felt something stir inside her, something she had buried deep down for so long, hope. "I'm not sure I can believe that yet," Emma said quietly. "But I want to." Liam smiled, the warmth in his eyes making her heart race. "That's all I'm asking for," he said, one step at a time. Emma nodded, her heart swelling with a mixture of hope and fear. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid of it. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew she was ready to try to take the leap. Liam leaned in slightly, his face inches from hers. For a moment, everything around them seemed to fade away, the sound of distant traffic, the hum of the city, the cold of the night. All that mattered was him, and the pull between them that had always been there, even when they didn't acknowledge it. He gently brushed a lock of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her skin, sending a rush of warmth through her. "I'm glad you want to try," Liam said softly, "because I do too." And with that, he leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't a passionate kiss, not yet. It was gentle, soft, a promise of what could be. Emma's heart raced as she kissed him back, her fears and doubts melting away with each passing second. She didn't need to know what the future held, she just needed to be present in the moment, to let herself believe that she was worthy of this, of him. As they pulled away, Emma rested her forehead against his, breathing in the scent of him, letting the moment linger. She had spent so much of her life running from love, from vulnerability, from the possibility of being hurt. But with Liam, she felt something different, a sense of safety, of peace. Maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to believe that she deserved more, that she could have a life full of love and happiness. And maybe, just maybe, Liam was the one who could show her how. "I think this is the beginning of something special," Liam whispered, his breath warm against her skin. Emma smiled, her heart full of hope for the first time in years. "I think so too," she whispered back. Days passed, and the connection between Emma and Liam continued to grow stronger. What had started as a chance encounter 6 years ago had blossomed into something real, something deep. Emma couldn't remember the last time she had felt this way, this comfortable, this open, this seen. She still couldn't believe how easily it had happened, how naturally they fell into each other's lives again. She had feared that the pain of the past, the ghosts of her previous relationship, would haunt her, but with Liam, it was different. He wasn't like the others. He didn't try to fix her or change her. He just accepted her for who she was. Their dates had become regular now. Sometimes it was just dinner, sometimes long walks through the city, or sitting together in a quiet park, talking about their dreams and fears. Emma had started to share things with him that she had never told anyone: how her family struggled, how she had always felt like she was never enough, how she had built walls around herself just to keep the hurt out. Liam listened without judgment, his steady gaze never wavering. He made her feel like she could be herself, the version of her she had buried for so long, the version that wanted more out of life but never believed it was possible. It was one of those quiet evenings that Emma found herself sitting across from him in his apartment. They were eating dinner, nothing fancy, just takeout from a small Italian restaurant they both loved, and chatting about everything and nothing. But tonight there was something different in the air. There was a certain weight to the moment, something that felt like a turning point. After they finished eating, Liam set the empty dishes aside and turned to her. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice more serious than usual. Emma looked at him, her heart suddenly racing. "About what?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Liam hesitated for a moment, his brow furrowing slightly, as if choosing his words carefully. "About us. About where we're headed." Emma's heart skipped a beat, but she didn't look away. She had been wondering the same thing. They had been seeing each other for a few months now, and she had started to feel that pull again, the kind of pull she had once felt with her ex, the kind that scared her because it made her vulnerable. She had been trying to ignore it, but now that Liam had brought it up, she couldn't avoid the question any longer. "I think about that too," Emma admitted softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I don't want to face it without you." Liam smiled at her, a warm, tender smile that made Emma's heart swell. "You don't have to face it alone," he said, his tone full of conviction. "You never have to be alone again." Emma felt her throat tighten. It was hard for her to believe in something so permanent, something so real. She had spent so many years protecting herself, telling herself that love was fleeting, that nothing lasted. But here Liam was, offering her something she wasn't sure she could accept, something that felt like a promise. "Liam," she said, her voice trembling, "I want to believe that. I really do. But I've been hurt before, and it's hard to let my guard down." Liam's eyes softened, and he reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "I know," he said gently, his thumb brushing over her skin. "And I'm not asking you to let go of your guard all at once. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm not perfect, but I'll do everything I can to show you that you can trust me." Emma looked down at their joined hands, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions. She had wanted this, hadn't she? She had wanted to find someone who would accept her, flaws and all, someone who would be there for her without trying to change her. And here he was, offering her exactly that. It was everything she had ever dreamed of but never thought possible. She took a deep breath, looking up into his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. "I want to trust you," she said quietly, "and I think I'm ready to try." Liam's smile widened, and he squeezed her hand gently. "You don't have to try, Emma," he said softly. "You already are." As the evening continued, Emma realized that something inside her had shifted. The walls she had spent years building had started to crumble, piece by piece. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to protect herself anymore. Maybe it was time to let someone in, to let herself be vulnerable again, to believe in the possibility of a future with Liam. It wasn't going to be easy, but she was ready. And for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was truly moving forward, not just in her relationship with Liam, but in her own life. She was ready to face whatever came next, knowing that she wouldn't have to do it alone. Weeks passed, and Emma found herself falling deeper into the rhythm of her new life with Liam. They spent their days together, sharing quiet moments in between their busy schedules, and their connection grew stronger with each passing day. It wasn't just about the romantic dinners or the long walks. They were building something real, something that made Emma believe that love could be more than just fleeting moments. It could be solid, lasting, and full of trust. But even as their bond grew, Emma still carried a heavy weight with her, one she had never quite let go of: the past. It haunted her in subtle ways. And though she had let herself believe in Liam and in their future together, the scars of her previous relationships still lingered. She knew she had to confront them eventually. One afternoon, as they sat together on the couch, sipping coffee, Emma could no longer keep her thoughts to herself. "Liam, there's something I need to talk to you about," she said, her voice hesitant. Liam turned to her, his gaze steady. "Anything, Emma. You know you can tell me anything." Emma took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words before she spoke. "It's just, sometimes I can't shake the feeling that I'm not enough, that I'm just waiting for things to fall apart. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like I'm waiting for you to realize I'm not perfect, that I'm not the person you think I am." Liam reached out, placing a hand gently on hers. "Emma, I've never needed you to be perfect," he said softly. "I don't want you to be anyone other than who you are. The person I've come to care about is already more than enough." His words hit her like a wave, sweeping away some of the doubts that had been clinging to her heart. But even with his reassurance, Emma couldn't help but feel the lingering pull of her past, the hurt, the betrayals, the fear of vulnerability. "I don't know if I can completely let go of those fears," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. "I've been hurt before, Liam. It's hard to believe that something this good can actually last." Liam's expression softened, and he pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her. "I understand," he said quietly, "but you don't have to do this alone. We can take it one step at a time, and if you ever feel unsure, I'll be here." "I'm not going anywhere, Emma." She leaned into his embrace, allowing herself to close her eyes for a moment. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe, like maybe, just maybe, she could let herself believe in something more. Something that wasn't just built on fear. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm scared, but I'm willing to try." As the days went on, Emma began to notice subtle changes in herself. The walls she had so carefully built around her heart began to crumble, piece by piece. It wasn't an easy process, and there were days when she struggled to shake the doubts that clung to her. But every time Liam looked at her, every time he held her close or reassured her with his words, she felt a little more at ease. Slowly, she began to believe that she was worthy of love, not just any love, but the kind that Liam was offering her. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. One evening, after dinner, Liam surprised her with something small, yet meaningful: a picture frame with a photo of the two of them from their first date, sitting across from each other in that small cafe. It was a candid moment, both of them laughing at something silly Emma had said. She hadn't even realized someone had taken the photo, but seeing it now, it felt like a snapshot of everything they had been through. "I know it's not much," Liam said, his voice soft as he handed her the frame. "But I wanted to give you something to remind you that we're in this together, every step of the way." Emma smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. She took the frame from him and placed it on the coffee table between them. "Thank you," she said, her voice full of emotion. "This means more than you know." They sat together in silence for a few moments, the weight of their shared experiences hanging in the air. It wasn't always easy, but Emma knew one thing for certain. They had something worth fighting for. Something that was real, built on trust, understanding, and a love that was slowly but surely growing stronger with each passing day. Liam gently cupped her face in his hands, looking at her with a seriousness that made Emma's heart skip a beat. "I'm not going anywhere, Emma. I promise," he said, his voice low but full of conviction. Emma looked into his eyes, seeing nothing but sincerity. "I believe you," she whispered, and for the first time she truly did. As the months passed, Emma and Liam's relationship continued to grow, each day strengthening the foundation they had built together. What had once started as an uncertain connection between two people who had been scarred by their pasts had blossomed into something beautiful, something that felt like it had been meant to be all along. They found joy in the little moments, sitting on the couch, sharing stories over dinner, taking walks in the park, and even facing challenges together. The doubts that Emma had once held in her heart began to fade, replaced by trust and love. She had learned to let go of her fear, to let Liam in completely, and in doing so, she had opened herself up to a life she had once thought was impossible. But as time went on, the bond they shared deepened, and Liam began to realize something he had been meaning to say for some time. It was a quiet evening, much like any other. Emma was sitting on the couch, reading a book, while Liam was finishing some work on his laptop. There was an ease to the silence between them now, a comfort that came from being with someone who understood you in ways no one else ever had. After a few moments, Liam closed his laptop and turned to Emma, his expression more serious than usual. "Emma," he began, his voice soft but steady, "there's something I need to tell you." Emma looked up from her book, meeting his gaze with curiosity. "What is it?" she asked, setting the book aside. Liam took a deep breath, his eyes not leaving hers. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything we've been through, and I realize that I don't want to wait any longer. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." Emma's heart skipped a beat as the words sank in. She had imagined this moment before, of course, but hearing it come from Liam's lips made it feel even more real, even more profound. "Liam, she began, but he gently interrupted her, taking her hand in his. "Emma," he said, his voice full of sincerity, "I love you, and I want to build a future with you. I don't need anything grand or extravagant. All I want is you, by my side, every day." Tears welled up in Emma's eyes as she looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. She had spent so much time questioning her worth, believing that love was something she could never truly have. But now, here she was, standing on the edge of a new chapter, with someone who loved her for exactly who she was. "I love you too, Liam," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." A smile spread across Liam's face, and he pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. They stood there for a moment, holding each other, letting the moment settle between them. It was a quiet promise, a vow without words, that they would face whatever came next, together. And then, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, Liam pulled back slightly, still holding her hands. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his eyes shining with the same love and sincerity that had always been there. Emma's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment she couldn't speak. She had dreamed of this day, of someone asking her to spend forever with them, but to hear it from Liam, to know that he truly meant it, made her heart soar. "Yes," she said finally, her voice trembling with happiness. "Yes, I will marry you." Liam's face lit up, and he gently cupped her face in his hands, brushing a tear from her cheek. "You've made me the happiest man alive," he said softly, his voice full of wonder. They kissed then, a kiss that sealed their promise, their future, and everything they had fought for. It wasn't just a kiss of love, it was a kiss of new beginnings, of healing, of two people who had found each other when they least expected it, and had built something beautiful from the ashes of their pasts. The days that followed were filled with excitement and planning for their future. They didn't need a lavish wedding or grand gestures, what they had was already more than enough. They had each other, and that was all they truly needed. As Emma stood by Liam's side, watching the sunset together on the rooftop of his apartment, she realized how far they had come. The girl who had once felt so alone, so lost, had found her place. She had found her home, and it was with Liam. And as she looked at him, her heart full of love, she knew that their journey together was just beginning. There would be challenges ahead. There would be difficult moments. but they would face it all with the strength of their love, and together, they would overcome anything. For the first time in her life, Emma felt completely at peace, knowing that she was exactly where she was meant to be. In this heartfelt journey of love, Emma and Liam's story unfolds, showcasing the power of second chances and the beauty of healing after heartbreak. This millionaire story takes us through Emma's struggles with self-doubt and her quest for love, as she crosses paths with Liam, a successful but kind-hearted millionaire. Their relationship evolves slowly but steadily, and the couple faces challenges together, learning to trust and love again. With every step, Emma's doubts fade, as she finds herself truly loved for the first time, showing us how love can heal even the deepest wounds. As the couple grows closer, they make a commitment to each other that feels destined, and the final act seals their promise for the future. This is a touching millionaire story about overcoming fears, accepting love, and finding happiness in unexpected places. Follow Emma and Liam as they embrace their love story in this emotional journey, where the millionaire proves that true wealth is found in love, not material things. If you're a fan of millionaire stories, this one will captivate your heart, offering a perfect mix of romance and inspiration. Love, commitment, and the pursuit of happiness come together beautifully in this emotional tale of a millionaire who finds love when he least expects it. Don't miss this heartwarming millionaire story, filled with passion, growth, and the promise of forever.